Hi, everybody. We're all back now.
Okay.
I'm going to introduce everybody for our podcast here. From our last panel, we have Brooke LoFurno. Hi, Brooke.
Hi.
And also from last panel, we have Shaun Filippelli. How are you doing tonight?
Oh, thank you.
And tonight we also have Greg Boysen joining us. In addition to his writing with the Blackhawks, Greg is also an editor for the Hockey Writers, and he is credentialed with the AHL, Rockford IceHogs, and the Chicago Wolves. So welcome, Greg.
Thanks for having me. How's it going, guys?
Pretty good, pretty good. Okay, so how the Blackhawks appear to be committed to general manager Stan Bowman. And everybody, critics and fans alike, are calling for his head, but he seems to have the faith of owner Rocky Wirtz. So in short, we are stuck with Stan. Since that's the case, let's talk a little bit about Stan tonight. And what would you say is your biggest complaint about Stan? Let's start with Greg. Go ahead. What do you have to say, Greg?
We only have an hour, right?
Only have an hour.
I'm just kidding. Outside of the obvious, his love of the no movement clauses, I think the two biggest issues that kind of go hand in hand, especially with the supposed direction of the team now, he doesn't get enough value for his trades. He's been on the wrong end of too many trades. I'm not saying everything he's done has been bad. He's pulled a few good ones. Not going to completely rip on him, but you can go back as far as the first cap purge. What did he get for Dustin Byfuglien? Nothing. What did he get for Andrew Ladd? Nothing. Nick Leddy. The list goes on and on. Giving him Teuvo Teravainen for nothing. Well, you got to get rid of. But I mean, you can even argue there's a chance in a few months we're going to be able to say he lost 3 trades involving Brendan Saad, and that's impressive, but not in a good way. So that's a downside, and his lack of patience when it comes to developing prospects is bad too. He gives up on his guys. He either rushes them or gives up on them too early, trades them away. I mean, just look at all the first round picks he's traded away recently. I mean, granted, not all of them were fantastic players to begin with, but still, again, we talked about Teuvo, gave up on him. Philip Deneau has turned out to be pretty darn good. Yeah. He's traded away Jokiharju for Nylander. That's when if you followed me on social media for years, I pretty much defended Bowman, but the Jokiharju for Nylander is when that was the deal breaker. That's when I jumped ship. So yeah, the lack of development and the not getting fair value for his trades, those are his biggest flaws.
All right, fair enough. Brooke, let's go to you. What do you have to say?
My biggest complaint, I think I said this on our last live, but my biggest complaint is that he keeps trying to fix things that aren't broken. He keeps trading away players that aren't the issue. Like Greg said, Jokiharju, Teuvo, Leddy, Byfuglien, like all those players, and we just didn't need to get rid of, and we did. And then on top of it, you don't get good value back for the players that we did trade away. So that's my biggest complaint, is that the more he tries to fix things that aren't broken, he keeps digging bigger grave for himself and for the team that's hard to get out of.
Shaun, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, the common thread here is obviously that he doesn't have a good sense of value. My biggest complaint with Bowman, similar to what we've all said already, is that he just doesn't get the value back for these trades. I mean, he makes moves and he's trying to do what he can to improve this team, or in whatever capacity, move them in the direction he's claiming they're going, but he's just not getting the return. For a GM who's winning Stanley Cups, wins 3 in 6 years, 3 all of last decade, he should be in the negotiating chair that people are coming to him to give things up to get a piece of that. And it always seems like he ends up being on the other side of those trades. And I can't fathom why that happens when he should have the edge and the advantage and being able to demand what he wants or hang up the phone. Obviously he was part of some pretty core groups there who did a lot of winning, and he should have been getting a lot more in return for what he was giving up. So definitely a bad judge of value. And, at this point just seems like a bad negotiator.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna put in my 2 cents. what is up with that Brent Seabrook contract, you know? He signed him when an 8-year contract when he was 31 years old, and no movement clause. And it just, to me, that seems, you know, I mean, that's the biggest thing that's really just a thorn in our side with Blackhawks now is what are we going to do with Brent Seabrook? And at the time, it seemed like a good thing, you know? So I know it's tough. I can't even imagine what it'd be like to be a general manager. So I guess I'm not as hard on him as some of the fans, but some of the other fans, but he seems like he's a financial guy first and foremost. And like Greg, I think, alluded to, he, you know, just doesn't have a very good track record with assessing talent, with keeping talent versus trading talent. And yeah, it's tough because, you know, and I guess let's turn it around. Let's go to the flip side now. You know, we have a lot of things to complain about Stan, but there's also some things, you know, there's some good things that he's done. So maybe let's talk a little bit about that. Brooke, go ahead. What's something good that Stan has done?
I think what Stan does well, I think, is finding hidden gems in the draft with Evan Barrett, Ian Mitchell, DeBrincat. I think he's good actually later on in the draft than he is like in the first round. So that I think that's his strength, is hidden gems.
Okay, Shaun?
I mean, I sort of alluded to it in what he does poorly, but at the same time that at least, you know, he's active. He's trying to do things. Whether that was when they were still in a position to compete or now in their supposed rebuild, at least he's active. And if for nothing else, it shows that he's trying to make moves. Whether he's successful at them or not is a totally different conversation, as we've just discovered. But at least in making those moves, he's keeping things relevant, keeping things exciting for fans. So there's at least something to talk about and something to follow and at least something to look forward to. So I'll give him credit for saying that he's certainly not inactive. So he does what he can to be as active as he can be.
Okay. I'm gonna have to go with Brooke here. I'm gonna say finding those, especially those European gems, you know, for cheap too, you know. I mean, Panarin, you've got Kubalik, Gustafsson, even like, you know, like David Camp is from Europe. So good on him for doing that. Good on the European scouts too. You know, that are helping him out. And then again, the 2010 Cup, he was here, but you really can't say that he put that team together. But you can give him some credit for 2013, 2015. They didn't win a cup in 2014, but that was also an excellent team that came very, very close. So, you know, there's the good with the bad with Stan. What can you add that might be positive, Greg?
No, this will surprise you, but I do say positive things about people at times.
Yeah.
You guys stole a little bit, like obviously the European, he's built a really good European scouting staff. He's found some gems in Europe, and you have to be able to do that because that's where you can get some experienced talent at a cut rate price. You know, you talk about guys, you can go even as far back as Antti Ranta was a European signing. Panarin was obviously great. Guys like Kubalik, Cahoon recently is a serviceable. You can even argue a guy like Michael Kempney, even though he wasn't a right fit here, he's turned out to be a pretty serviceable NHL playoff player, Stanley Cup winner. So he's had a good track record there. I'd also give him credit. I know a lot of people don't like to think, a lot of people like to say he inherited this team and, you know, it was all Dale Talon. Well, no, not really, because how great has Dale Talon done since leaving the Blackhawks, even though some of those top players were drafted by Mike Smith, so let's not give all the credit to Dale Talon.
Yeah.
But a strength of his, especially during those cup years, has been able to find those right veterans, those role players to fill in that you need in order to win. Guys like a John Madden, guys like a Brad Richardson, or a Brent Sopel, those unsung heroes that do the dirty work that needs to be done in order for those type of teams to put them over. You know, how many times do you see these star-studded teams and then they choke when it matters because they don't have those guys to do the little things. So he's always been good at that, at those veteran guys, the quote unquote graybeards, the guys looking for that one last championship run that work out. He's always had a good knack at that. So, he does have his good qualities from time to time.
I'm thinking of Vermette, Antoine Vermette.
Yeah, he was definitely another one. My list of those
Richards,
guys.
Brad Richards.
Brad Richards.
Yeah.
Even you can even argue like a guy like Johnny Oduya, bringing in these guys that fly under the radar, that have had good solid careers, but just you need those guys. Every team needs those guys to succeed because you can't win with one line come playoff time.
Yeah, the depth guys, the depth. All right, well, let's move on to our next subject here, and I think that this is going to be a pretty hot topic. I want to discuss head coach Jeremy Colliton. He is 35 years old, and he had some really big shoes to step into. Obviously, Quenneville is second winningest coach of all time. He's a legend. And I'm sure that was a tough thing. And people are very critical of Carlton, especially because he's come in and we haven't really had there hasn't been a winning season yet. We'll start with Shaun on this one. Tell me what you like, or maybe you don't. Love him, hate him? What do you have to say about Carlton?
No, right off the bat, I'll say I like him. Coincidentally, the first article I wrote for the Hockey Writers was about Carlton. And it's not so much that I'm a huge Carlton supporter or fan yet, but I'm also not one who's been as skeptical as everyone's been since the minute he took over the job. You already hit it on the head. Taking over for Quenneville, I mean, that's a huge role to fill. So he was already behind the 8 ball, let alone what he was handed. A lot of people seem to forget that, and that confuses me when people want to be really critical of Carlton, to not really realize what he stepped into and whose shadow he had to try to emerge through. All of that said, this is clearly a developing team, and it has been for a few years. They're just now basically telling us that that's what they're doing. Here's one of the youngest coaches in the NHL who's with a developing squad, who's already done more with them than most people would have even thought or predicted he could have, in terms of beating McDavid, to make it into the playoffs as a 12th seeded team last year. So I just say we got to stick around for the ride a little bit and see what he can do. Being that they're in this rebuild again, he is young. He's going to grow with his players, so we're going to see what he can do with them. And if by the time his players are ready to compete, he's not, then let's make a judgment call. But the skepticism right now is just unwarranted, in my opinion. He's done enough to warrant that he should be there. Let's see what else he can do.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. I think it's just too early. It's too early in his tenure to make any kind of judgment call and to just say, I hear people saying, oh my gosh, he's a horrible coach. He's in over his head. I think that he is, incredibly intelligent, very analytical. He's got the ear of the young players, like you were saying, Shaun. And let's face it, the jury's still out, but it seemed like he had respect and of the veterans, and they were on board with what he was selling. We'll see if that's the same this year. I know that there's been some politics and all that, but I like him. I think he's going to make a good NHL coach, but he needs some time. And this is, we're in this soft rebuild or whatever you want to call it, retool. And this is where he's either going to show his stuff or we'll know, that me and you are wrong. Greg, what do you say?
All right. Point, counterpoint. Here we go.
That's
First
what we're here for.
I'm the guy that gets online the second anytime one of these retreads anytime when Bruce Boudreau gets his 12th coaching job or Peter Laviolette switches another team, I'm the first guy to complain about the retread. So I do give Stan credit for giving a new up-and-coming guy a chance, thinking outside the box a little bit. I was on board with that. And as you said, Shaun, he was almost put in a position to fail from day one.
Yeah.
Not saying he's failed, but anytime you replace a legend, be it on the field of play or behind the bench, you have a really, really hard job to do, especially a guy as beloved as Q was in this town. That being said, I think they I don't know if Colliton will be a good coach. He still could be a good coach. I think they rushed him to the NHL. He had a year and a handful of games at the AHL with results. Like obviously Stan loves the guy, so they fast tracked him. And again, that's not his fault either. So, some guy comes up to you and says, "Hey, you want to go coach in the NHL?" "No, I'm too young. I'm not ready." "No, you're going to take that job."
Yeah.
My biggest issues with him, as far as now that he's been here for essentially 2 seasons, granted, one wacky season. We all heard last summer they're going to get a training camp under him. Everything's going to be fine. They're going to know the defensive system. And the first month of the season, they were hot garbage. So the whole magic training camp theory was just noise.
There was injuries. 2 injuries.
Come on. My biggest problems are his stubbornness. He just refuses to change things, even like as simple as like putting Dominic Kubalik on the top line.
Yeah.
People were shouting that for like 6 games, and he finally does it. And holy crap, look what happens. So his not unwillingness to change, and he still has that defensive system in that 2 seasons in still isn't working. When a guy like Duncan Keith can't figure it out after 2 seasons, it's time to try something different. Great coaches don't make their team fit his system. He builds a system around his players and puts them in a position to succeed. I don't think he does that enough. And some of his in-game things drive me up the wall, like when we saw in the playoff series, not using a timeout at the end of a game, or pulling your goalie, having an offensive zone face-off with an extra man down a goal, and Jonathan Taves is on the freaking bench. Like, come on now, you can't do that. You can rack that up to inexperience, maybe. But those are the things that hopefully he can figure out and have better game awareness, maybe some better assistant coaches to like grab him and say, "Hey, you may want to put 19 out there right now." Those are things that can work out. But if they truly are rebuilding, which I'm not 100% buying, then this is the time to give him a couple years and say, "Okay, we're not committed to winning right now, so let's see what you got." But if you were committed to winning 2 years ago, not sure he was the right guy either. So there's a whole lot of give and take with that whole scenario. But none of it is his fault.
Okay, Brooke, whose side are you on?
I think I'm on the side of I tolerate him because Greg took the words right out of my mouth. He was put in a position to fail, and I feel bad for him that he was put in there with such high expectations because he was taken over for Q. And if Q couldn't win with that group, then Colliton sure as hell ain't going to be able to win with that group. But then the other part of me is like, if I see coaches like Gerard Gallant is still out there, then I'm like, okay, I really wish we would be more aggressive in that sense because like Greg said, I don't know if I totally buy the rebuild thing, but if they have to stay competitive for Kane and Taves and Keith and Seabrook, then I think they should have an experienced coach that can make something out of nothing. And one thing that kind of bugs me about Colliton a little bit, or maybe not a little bit, a lot, is his consistency issues with the lineup. It's like it felt like every day or every game you just saw a lineup that it seemed like was just put in a blender and just put out there for no reason at all. People that were playing on wrong lines. He incorrectly used Dylan Strome, and I feel like the team was not going to form chemistry with each other if you keep bouncing them around. So I feel like in a way he also didn't put himself in the right position to succeed, because if you stick with something that works, then you should leave it. You shouldn't keep switching up the lines. So I tolerate him for now because I understand this is still a learning curve for him, and maybe he'll get better, but I don't see him as a long-term fit for this team. I think they need a winning coach at this point in time if they're going to stay competitive with Kane and Taves.
Okay. Well, we've talked about Bowman. We've talked about Colliton. Let's get to the players. Let's talk about the players a little bit. And I know that we hit on this a couple weeks back. We talked about the core 4, and you mentioned, Brooke. Who do we have? We have Taves, we have Kane, we have Keith, and we have Seabrook. And And we know that they're probably not going anywhere for at least for right now. You know, they probably it seems like it's been decided that they're going to stay, but who knows what the future brings. So I guess my question to all of us is, who is of the core four, who would you say would be the most expendable? And you know, I'm just going to stop myself right there, because are we all going to say Brent Seabrook? Is anybody going to disagree?
No.
And who's, I mean, I think that everybody's going to say that Patrick Kane is probably, and tell me if you disagree, seriously. Patrick Kane is probably the one that you want to keep the most, right? So we're down to like Taves and Duncan Keith, which is kind of a tough question. Like, who's the most expendable, Taves or Duncan Keith? And I'm just going to go right out and say right now that my viewpoint is that it makes me a little bit angry when people just say, oh, you know what, we don't need Taves. We can do fine without Taves. Who the heck is going to win all those faceoffs? Who is going to win all those faceoffs? Do you know that he has had like a, I don't know, 56, 57% faceoff his entire career? And he takes the majority of the faceoffs. And I know that it's not just about faceoffs, but you know, he's an all-around player, offense, defense, you know, he's willing to get physical. And I just, I love Duncan Keith, but I think that he is more expendable. That would be my answer, is that Keith is the one that is expendable. He's an elite player. He's an excellent player, but he's also on the ice for a lot of goals against these days. And, you know, he obviously eats up a lot of minutes, which is another reason why he's on the ice for a lot of goals against. But I think he's starting to become a little bit more reliability, and there's just more defensemen in the pipeline. And he's older. He's, you know, what is he, 37, 38?
Mm.
So I'm going to, my answer is Keith. Greg.
Well, expendable is a fun word. If this is truly a rebuild, then they're all expendable, and they all should be traded for prospects and picks if you're doing a real rebuild. Problem is, they all have no movement clauses. So, you know, they should have had a difficult conversation with the four of them saying, this is what we're going to do. If you guys want to be part of it, great. If you guys want us to try and find the best situation for you so you guys can go and win another cup before it's all said and done, we'll do that. Those conversations never happened, which is not a good thing. But if you're truly doing a rebuild, they're all expendable, and you should be taking offers on any and all of them. But as far as if, you know, Taves, Keith, they're both great players. You never want to see these guys go and play in another uniform, but you know, everything comes to an end at some point. Everything has a shelf life. So you have to make hard business decisions. These are business decisions that need to be made, not fan decisions, not, you know, PR decisions. These have to be business decisions. So if it comes down to you trade Taves or Keith, you're going to lose a lot no matter which one goes. And to me, it just comes down to you get rid of the guy that you get the more for. Whoever has the most value and you can get the most in return, that's the guy you move. But as we mentioned earlier, do I want Stan Bowman making the decision on what you get back for guys like that? I don't. So we're back in this little vicious circle.
For sure. Brooke, how about you?
If we're talking about who I think would be the most expendable out of Taves and Keith.
Well, out of the core four, but yeah, I think we've kind of narrowed it down to Taves and Keith.
Yeah, because my kind of outlook on a full rebuild is I feel like everyone can go but Kane was kind of how I felt about it. You can pretty much, everyone can be expendable, like Greg said, if we're going to go full rebuild, but my unpopular opinion is Taves. That would be realistically expendable only because Keith is older and I don't really know what the return would be for him. And then when I look at Taves, obviously any team would want to take someone like him. And then I think about our prospect pool of centers that are coming up. Kirby Doc, we got Carpenter, we got Janmark, we got Kurashev or whatever. How do you pronounce his name, Greg?
You were right. Kurashev, yeah.
Kurashev. So I know they're not going to move Taves, and I'm not advocating for trading him, but I can see where he could be expendable if that was on the table. But it is a hard decision to make because of what he means and what Keith means and what the four really do mean to this team. So I do not see them going anywhere, though, but it's more kind of just a idea or opinion.
You definitely could get more for Taves if you look at it from that kind of viewpoint. I wasn't really thinking about it that way. So, yeah. Shaun, what do you think?
You beat me to it. I was going to say I never really looked at it from that perspective per se that Greg and Brooke touched on from a value proposition. But I mean, of the core four, obviously we all agree Kane would bring the biggest value as has been determined. So as far as being expendable, I would say it's not expendable, but he would obviously bring in the greatest value. Seabrook would be near impossible to move at this point, as again we all agree. So, like you said, Gail, and I think it's fair when it comes down to Taves and Keith, who is most expendable. I'll touch on it not so much from who's going to bring the most value, because I'd agree that would be Taves. As far as who's most expendable in sort of the most literal way that it sounds, I'm going to say Keith. And simply stated, Keith's in his late 30s. He's done a lot for the team. He's still his work ethic is second to none. He's done tremendous things for this organization. But I think the reality is people need to recognize that he's clearly on the downturn of his career. It doesn't mean he's not a steady presence. It doesn't mean he's not out there to play with heart every shift he has, and it doesn't mean he doesn't still instill great work ethic and great morals into this team and great values. There's no doubt about that. But if you position leadership for Kane and Taves and Keith, I'm picking Taves every single time. And if you keep Taves around, he's going to lead this bunch who still is rebuilding and growing, and he's going to instill that a little bit more in these youth that are coming up. Whereas I don't think Keith can do that as much as Taves can. And Brooke touched on this too, as far as being deep on center. But I mean, in my opinion, we're deeper on D. Yes, they're young and there's a lot of, defense is a mess right now, but there's a lot of youth that are there as well as veteran presence. You pick up someone like Zadorov, why do we still need Keith around if we've just picked up a veteran defenseman, which we shouldn't have in the first place, but again, another episode. So what's the point in keeping Keith around at this point? If there's that choice to be made, I'm going to keep Taves every single time.
Yeah, what would the defensive pairings look like without Keith? There's a storyline there right there. Okay, let's move on. Well, first, let me say that if you're just joining us, we are here. This is the Hockey Writers. This is our Blackhawks show, our first Blackhawks show, Blackhawks Banter. I'm Gail Kauchak, writer Gail Kauchak. We have Brooke LoFurno with us. We have Shaun Filippelli and Greg Boysen. So thank you for joining us. And we're going to get into the basically the second segment of our show here. I would like to talk a little bit about the free agents that have recently joined the team, and basically just pick which one you are the most excited about. So let's see, who do we have here? We've got Nikita Zadorov, Lucas Wallmark, and Matthias Janmark. And they're I don't know, you could mention more, but those are kind of the big ones. Who are you most excited about? And let's start with Greg.
D, none of the above. I mean, there's not a lot. There's not a lot to be excited there about. I'm not saying they're all there. I mean, they're all decent players, but your two forwards you signed are fourth line, third line, penalty kill, grindy guys. Not the type of guy you go out and buy a jersey for the second they sign. Zadorov, I guess he's exciting just for the fact that he's going to bring the physicality that so many people crave, and you do need to a degree for sure. He's a big hitter. He's going to give you those highlight reel hits. He's going to put guys through the boards. He's going to get the people excited. Unfortunately, though, in his need to deliver those big hits, he's going to get caught way out of position every once in a while, and the puck's going to end up in his back net. So you gotta take the good with the bad there. So just because, and this is not a rip on Wallmark or Janmark, they're fine players at what they do, but they're role players. Since the bar is pretty low as far as excitement on the new veterans on the team, it's got to be Zadorov.
Satteroff is your answer. Okay, Brooke, who are you most excited about of those three?
I'm with Greg. I'm not really excited about any of them, to be honest with you. But I guess I would say Zadorov, only because we know how much Chicago loves defense. They love physicality. So he's probably going to be a fan favorite right away if he lays out big hits and is just like a big bulldozer out there. Then I'm all for it, because that might be one of the most exciting aspects of the team this year if they can make really good physical plays. But I would say him. But I did, from my podcast that I did yesterday, hear about Matthias Janmark, about how great defensively he is. So I think if he's like a Kruger type, that can be great on the power or penalty kill. And yeah, if he just makes good defensive plays too, then I think then all power to him. But out of the three, I probably would say Zadorov as well.
Shaun?
So we're going to go 3 for 3 at the start of our answer, but then I know Gail's going to disagree with what I'm going to say next because she wants to be the optimist. I will agree right away and say none of the above. But since we have to pick somebody, I'm going to say Zadorov as well. And the reality is that he's the only player that comes in that's going to create any sort of excitement. It's already been touched on. He's big body, likes to throw his body around. He's going to get some hits and be physical. And who doesn't love that in hockey? That's what hockey is. So as I sort of just touched on in my last answer on the last question, I don't know why we got him. I don't think there was really much of a reason to get him at this point in where Chicago is. I think he would have been better suited elsewhere, that on a team that's looking to compete right now. Obviously, that's not Chicago, but we do have him. So I would say I'm most excited of who you've mentioned to watch him, because again, he's going to throw his body around. And if for nothing else, or from a silver lining perspective, I'm hoping that that's going to allow some of these youth to develop with a little bit more protection around them. So silver lining, he can come in and create a better atmosphere for these kids to show what they got without being as worried.
Maybe he's the missing piece. Maybe he's going to make the defense awesome. We could put them all together and it's going to be like this kick-ass defense. I mean, right? It's possible. You never know. You never know.
Do we have drug testing here at THW?
To our viewers, you can tell that we are super duper duper excited. Our enthusiasm is just through the roof right now.
Yeah.
So excited.
All looking up.
Hey, if you go into the season with no expectations, you can't be disappointed. That's how you got to play it.
There
We
you
do.
go.
We have to play it like that.
Yeah, you guys, you're so negative. Okay, I have a different pick. For who I'm most excited about. I really like this Lucas Walmart. And it just seems to me like everybody's saying positive things about him. They say he's got really good work ethic, say that he has a lot of energy, good on the penalty kill, versatile. And I'm going to go back to my face-off fix again. He's a center, and he could provide that depth down the middle. I think he's at like 50% or something with his face-offs. And I just think that he could be a good versatile player for them to kind of have. And I'm excited to see where he fits into the lineup.
We love versatility too on this team. Anywhere we can get versatility, we'll take it.
Right. So that was my different pick. Okay, let's move on to prospects. We talked about the free agents. Let's move on to prospects. And the top prospects that I've heard about we have Ian Mitchell, we have Wyatt Kalynuk. Those are both defensemen. And then we have coming in Philip Kurashev and Pius Suter on forward end. And of course, maybe someone else is on your radar, but and we'll start with Brooke. Who would you say that you're most excited about when it comes down to the prospects?
I might go off the board here and I might say Kalynuk, only because the Badgers program, the Wisconsin Badgers, is such a good program. And obviously they had Tony Granato running it, which is kind of close to the Blackhawks since Don Granato was here for a bit. And it's the same program that Ryan McDonough came out of. And he seems like a really energetic defenseman, which I'm excited about. Anytime we can get a little bit of spunk on defense, I am for. So I think that he might be one of Bowman's hidden gems there when he hit free agency and we signed him. So I'm excited to see if he can provide something new to this team.
How about you, Shaun?
I'm going to go super recent. I'm going off the board a little bit myself. I'm going to go with Drew Comeso, picked 46th overall in the 2020 draft. And the reason why I look forward to him most is when it boils down to it, the biggest question marks around the Chicago Blackhawks amidst the many areas that there are is goaltending. Seeing Crawford walk opens up the door for Delia and Subban to obviously share some playing time next year and see what they can do. I've said all along, I'm team Colin on that one, but at the same time, you have this young kid coming in now. And, Drew had a rough year last year with the U.S. national team, but then he's really turned things around this past 2019-20 season. So his numbers have greatly improved, and he's still a young kid. So, 18, 19 years old, similar to what Brooke said earlier, they pick him up late in the second round, 46th overall, and the net's wide open, so to speak, for anyone to come in and take it over. So on this rebuilding squad, still looking to see what they can do. Not going to do a lot of winning. He might have an opportunity to step in and actually get some playing time in the near future. And to be honest, I'm just excited to see what he can do.
Okay. All right, cool. Somebody different. I think I'm going to actually pick, I think I'm most excited about Suter. He comes from the Swiss League, and I think he was like the top scorer this past season. They get their European, hopefully another European gem. And I just, they're saying that he could very easily, fit right into the NHL and come right in, and be on the top six, be on one of those top lines. And he's the one that I've got my eye on for me. So how about you, Greg?
Out of the group that you mentioned, I really like. I'm gonna go off the board too, but I like Kurashev a lot. He was impressive in Rockford last year. He's got that NHL just feel to him. He's not going to be an all-star or a Hart Trophy winner anytime soon, but he's definitely that middle bottom six guy that you need, depth player. My only concerns about him is he had a couple different injury spots last year, so durability could be something to be concerned about. But anytime, any post-game talk with Ice Hogs coach Derek King last year, and if I mentioned Kurashev, his eyes lit up. That was like his pet project. He loved him down there, raved about him in his season-ending conference call. So I think out of that group, he's probably the most NHL ready. The prospect, though, I don't think gets enough attention that I think could make an impact as soon as this year is Nicholas Bodine. He was the other first-round draft pick from, 2018, the same draft as Boquist. He's kind of forgotten. Ian Mitchell, everybody's talking about him coming in. But Bodine, if you just bring up the AHL page or the Ice Hogs page or Elite Pros, any of those pages, and you just look at his numbers from last season, you're going to go 15 points, whatever, not that great, -4 or whatever he was. But watching him from October to the end of the season, the progression was there. He's a very, very good skater. He's your modern NHL defenseman, where he's a good skater. He's not very big, but that really doesn't play against him as much as you would think. He uses his skating and his body really well to shield himself and to take away passing lanes. According to Instat Hockey, he actually won 58% of his puck battles last year as a smaller defenseman, which is impressive. He's not the biggest guy. He's not physical at all, but he doesn't have to be, because he's got very good hockey IQ, takes away space. He always seems to be in the right place at the right time, like he knows the play is coming. And as I said, he's a really good skater, could be a weapon on the power play at some point. He really didn't focus a lot on his offense last year, even though he was on the power play quite a bit. But I think he was so determined to prove that he could play defense at that level that he kind of shied away from his offensive game, which is what got him there in the first place. But I am all about young defensemen concentrating on defense first, and the offense comes naturally. So that's one of the prospects out of that pool that I don't think gets enough attention, which is fine. But I think he could be, as early as this season, could be on the NHL roster.
And now he was, I think, 1 or 2 games up with the Hawks.
He got called up. I don't know if he ever actually did. He play? I don't remember.
Yeah, he played with Hagel right before. I think it was like the day before they
last game
paused the season. Yeah, the last game.
That seems like 18 years ago right
I know,
now,
right?
so I can't remember. I know he was called up right at the end. I don't recall if he actually got in a game or not, but you're right. He probably played that final game. So yeah, that's the guy I'm rooting for to get to the next level.
Our
And
defense won't be screwed for long, guys. Yay.
And if he did play, he probably didn't play for that many minutes. So
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, let's spread the discussion out to the whole team, all the players, everybody. Who do you think is going to take their biggest step in their development this season, and of course why? Expand on that a little bit, and we'll start with Shaun.
It might seem like an obvious one because of the strides he took in the latter end of last season, but I'm going to say Kirby Dach. I think he's positioning himself to really take even greater strides. We saw what he did as the season progressed last year. To be honest, I was a little bit skeptical as the season started, but he quickly turned me into a fan just by seeing his poise and his comfort and his confidence. And to see that grow throughout the season, let alone in that sort of weird post-season pre-playoff situation there when he got into training camp, and guys like Patrick Kane are patting him on the back and saying how good of a player he already is, let alone can be. He's going to have my support. If Patrick Kane thinks he's going to be good, then I'm pretty sure I think he's going to be good too. So seeing what he's already done, and then realizing that the kid's not even 20, I look forward to seeing what else he can do. He seems really calm and composed, which reminds me a lot of Taves. So I sort of see a natural transition there as far as Doc kind of slowly coming in and sort of taking over a Taves role, so to speak. Whether he becomes captain or not, I don't know, but just the visual aspect and the feeling that he gives off feels like Taves. So I look forward to seeing him grow into that.
Yeah, and I'm going to piggyback on that too. I just really am excited about his progression. I think he's the real deal. He took advantage of his time off. He came back for the playoffs after the season was paused, and it was just like he wasn't a rookie anymore. It was like he was in his second season kind of thing. And I think he's taking advantage of the mentorship of Taves. I think he living with Seabrook, and I'm pretty sure I read somewhere too that he's training with Kane's trainer, or has at least reached out to him, to get some advice. So, yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you. I think that he is really the guy that's going to take some big strides, and it's going to be fun to watch. It might not be a great team, but it's going to be fun to watch and tune in for Kirby Dach. So, Greg, would you agree or disagree? Anything to add?
Well, yeah, no, definitely Kirby Dach is the guy that is the obvious choice for all the reasons you guys mentioned, and I'm excited about him. I think he's the number one center of the future. But as far as the guy for the overall success and changing the direction of this rebuild that needs to make the strides next year, we're talking about Adam Boqvist, because it was kind of ugly at times last year, and he's a guy that I think got rushed to the NHL. I don't think there was any reason to bring him up last year. He was doing fine in Rockford. He was, defensively, he was okay at times, but that's not why you drafted him. When he had the puck in Rockford, like the building got quiet. Like everybody was like, holy crap, we got to watch this guy. He was dynamic. You never saw that in Chicago. I think he was too worried about not screwing up on defense that he was screwing up on defense and then forgetting to play offense. So it was between his ears, his struggles. And so hopefully he gets on stride and he becomes a dynamic offensive player. He's never going to be a Nicholas Jarmelson. That's not why you drafted him. So you have to realize that you're going to deal with the defensive struggles and the bad plays. But as long as he's driving the offense, you can live with that. It comes out even in the end. So he needs to be. I'm not saying he's going to be the guy that makes the biggest strides, but I hope it is for his sake and the team's sake.
Okay. How about you, Brooke?
I'm going to go off the board again here and say Highmore. Only because I wasn't really a big fan of his when he first came up, or I didn't know how big of an impact he would have. But then in the playoffs, he proved to be one of our best players, and because we've had kind of such an issue with our third and fourth lines and everyone's always shuffled and there's never really that anchor, I really hope that he can build off of that, and I hope that wasn't just a fluke and he can be a really good productive fourth line winger. I see the potential, and I hope he lives up to it. I really hope he can build off of it, but I am really excited about Kirby too. Really excited about Kirby. I love his like persona. I love how he presents himself. I think we got a gem with him.
I like Highmore too. Yeah, I think that's kind of a cool pick that you would say.
He's a good kid too. I talked to him a bunch of times in Rockford. I was super happy for him, and he's your prototypical fourth line guy. He likes to get under people's skin, and if you tell him to skate through a brick wall, he'll skate through a brick wall. So I think they got a real nice player in him, and he's easy to root for just because he's a good kid, and I'm very happy for him.
Well, and wasn't it? It was Colliton that was just raving about him, right? Wasn't it?
He would have made it last year. He definitely would have been on the team last year, but he got a bad shoulder injury early in the season and missed the majority of the season. But I could tell early last season, 2018, 2019, that he had that edge, that quote unquote jam to play in the NHL. And had he not separated his shoulder, he definitely would have been on the team midway through last season, especially as things, kind of took a bad turn there.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, we have a couple more questions here before we wrap it up. So I'm going to go with this one. Let's talk about sleeper players that are going to make a big impact. So somebody that you wouldn't really expect. And I don't know, maybe you do expect this, but I am rooting for Ian Mitchell. I think he's going to come in and, I think they wanted him. Didn't they want him last year? And he decided to stay one more year in Denver. And another defenseman that's kind of like Boquist. Boquist has struggled. And I'm almost wondering if Mitchell could be somebody that could come in again and provide a little bit more balance. I just recently did a piece about, kind of predicting the lineup for the coming season. And I thought that maybe instead of putting Keith and Boquist together on the top line, the top defensive pairing, that maybe you try out Mitchell. And then, Keith could kind of mentor him just like he has with some of the other guys, Jokiharju and now with Boquist. So he's my sleeper pick that I'm hoping can come in and make an impact right away. So Greg, who's yours?
I'm going to go with a name that I don't think a lot of people are talking about, and that's Kevin Lankinen, the third goalie in the goalie derby, if you may. At some point during the season, he's going to play. Yeah. I don't think there's a doubt about that, especially if you have a compressed schedule. He was really, really, really good last year for about 2 months of the season. He was an all-star at the AHL. Colin Delia, I think everybody expects Subban and Delia to be the two goalies because they've got the NHL experience. Delia struggled early in the year last year. He was, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, he was bad. He was really bad to the point where they brought up a third goalie in Matt Tompkins, and they gave Delia 2 weeks off in November. They didn't play him for 2 weeks. They gave him a mental break. He came back and played much better. I think a lot of that had to do with he was hoping that he was going to start the season in the NHL, and then July 1st, here comes Robin Leonard, and boom, he's back in the AHL. I think that messed with his head a little bit because we all know goalies are totally normal human beings that never have head case problems. But Lankinen was really good, and then he was dealing with injuries, and then as soon as he got announced to the All-Star team, he kind of went down the toilet a little bit, and then he got hurt. But I really like him. I think he's, as far as those three goalies, is fundamentally the best goalie. And with Subban's track record, every time it seems that they've needed him to play a few games in a row, he always seems to get hurt. Like he sneezes and he's out for 2 weeks. So Lankinen's going to play at some point this year, and I think that's the guy that's going to surprise some people.
Woohoo! Brooke.
I'm excited about Lankinen when you put it that way. I really
know, right?
really hope he's like a gem.
Don't buy your jersey just yet. Hold off. But
Aw.
I think he'll be solid.
Dang, I wanted to buy it right now. I think, okay, I like how we're in this theme of going off the board a little bit, but I'm going to say Nylander. And I know, he is a roller coaster. I know he takes us through the stages of grief. I understand. But the flashes that he did show when he was productive was good. Unfortunately, it wasn't consistent, and then it could turn really bad in 2 seconds. But I'm hoping that he can live up to his potential consistently, because if he can, that would help the team so much and make it a little less hurtful that we gave up Yoki Haru for him. But I'm really hoping that he proves everyone wrong and that he comes back more consistent. I will literally buy his jersey if that happens.
I sure hope you're right.
You and him will be the only two in Chicago that have one.
I'll be rocking my Lankinen and Nylander jersey. I'll be good.
Actually, maybe Nylander would be really, really, really good with the Ice Hogs.
Probably not.
I'm kidding.
I hope you're right, Brooke. I hope you're right, Brooke. That would be very good for everyone involved if he looks like a top 10 pick that he was.
Yes.
I'm not going to hold my breath on that, but if you're right, I will put $10 towards your Nylander jersey.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Shaun. We're waiting on you. Who do you think is?
Don't apologize.
Who do you think is going to a sleeper player?
Well, I got to address this first. Greg mentioned that goalies are unique characters, and we definitely are. I'm one of them, so I will certainly attest to that. He's got me excited about Lankinen now, so thank you for that.
Yeah.
But I mean, that just goes to show why I got my eyes on Comeso anyway. But as far as going to the sleeper picks, I'm going to go right on the board. You guys are going right off of it. I'm going to go straight to the middle of it. And when it comes to fantasy hockey from a sleeper pick perspective, it's going to sound like someone who shouldn't be a sleeper, but based on his results last season, I'm going to go back to Alex DeBrincat. And the reason I'm going to him is simply because obviously he had some regression last year, but I don't think it's anything that's trend-worthy. I think it's just a bad year. He didn't have a lot of support around him. Obviously, he had some synergy with Strom when they played together. And as the latter end of the season went on, DeBrincat came back to form. He was exciting to watch. He had a lot of chances. They just weren't going in. People who are just looking at stat lines are going to look and say, what are we talking about here? He had such a bad year compared to what he did before. A former 40-goal scorer has that kind of a year. What can you expect out of him? And that's exactly what I expect out of him. For him to get back to that 40-goal scoring form, whether he hits that or not, I don't know, but to be back in that form and to actually be able to produce on those chances. He had a lot of chances last year. They just didn't go in. And I think they're going to start to go in again for him. And that's why I'd say he'd be my sleeper pick from, again, fantasy sports perspective, because obviously he's already a big name on that roster, but he's going to be picked up late in that respect because his numbers last year wouldn't put him up much sooner than that. But he'll get back to form and he'll be exciting to watch, and he'll be putting pucks in with the amount of ice time he's going to be getting and as much responsibility as he's going to have with the retooling of this roster.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I think, as you said, he did everything right last year except score. And that happens. Hossa had a year like that.
Yep.
Saad had a year like that. It happens. You get bit by the shooting percentage snake and you're screwed for the whole season. So, yeah, he took a beating, and a lot of that was just unfair criticism, and hopefully he bounces back.
And what I liked is that he didn't shy away from it. He kept going to the net. He kept trying to create chances. He kept doing what he's known to do. So that was refreshing to see, where, again, if people who are just looking at a stat line are not going to think he did much, but you watch these games and you know otherwise.
And in fairness to him, he was bounced around the lineup a lot too. He was on the third line a lot, and that was a disadvantage as well. So yeah, the odds have got to come out better for him this season for sure.
We're on the DeBrincat revenge tour.
Yeah, you got it.
We gotta make t-shirts.
Awesome. All right, let's do one final question here, and we're going to start with Greg. Who do you see as a player that might possibly take a step back this season?
The obvious choice is Kubalik here. He had 30 goals as a rookie. I don't want to be right, and I don't think I will be right, but you never know with a guy that came over from Europe that has a huge year and he's the obvious choice to maybe not score 30 goals again. So that's my pick, but you also got to worry about those older guys we talked about earlier, Taves and Keith. How much longer can they go at a high level? We're already seeing regression, more so on Keith and Taves. Is this the year Kane looks human and in his mid 30s? We'll see. But unfortunately, there's a lot of options there.
Well, that's
gosh.
really nice.
That's a scary thought.
You're next, Brooke.
Oh, you know what though, Greg, you bring up a good point because this team is so inconsistent. If one player's having a really bad year, then another's having a really good year. Like Kane and Taves had like their career years, and DeBrincat did, and then all of a sudden they all went down. Like it's like we can't have nice things, and it's annoying. But because you said Kubalik, I would have said him, but I'm gonna probably say Shaw, only because I'm a little worried. I'm worried about how he's gonna come back after his latest concussion, and I really hope he can come back to his prime form because we all know what he can bring to this team and contribute to the team if he's healthy. But I'm gonna say him only because I feel like there's a lot of unknowns with him right now, and I really hope we're not seeing a decline with him anytime soon because that would just suck.
Yeah.
I honestly forgot he was on the roster until you mentioned him. Thanks, COVID.
Come on, he's on Twitter all over the place. He wants to come back so bad, and you just wonder if he should, because one more hit and he's done.
Yeah.
I know he's one of my favorite players, honestly.
Yeah, he likes 65.
That too.
Yeah. All right, Shaun, who do you think is maybe going to take a step back?
I'm going to go right back to who I think is most expendable, and that's Keith. Again, Keith's in his late 30s. It's not to say that he hasn't proven himself. Clearly, he's had his superstar years. He's just not there anymore. It's just the reality of it. He can, he works as hard as he does, which is great. But a late 30-year-old trying to keep up with these 20-something-year-olds is going to be tough for anybody. So the fact that he's still able to do what he does in his late 30s is impressive.
Yeah.
If he was anyone else, they wouldn't be able to do that. So kudos to him for that. However, he's on a natural downturn, like I already touched on, and that will continue. So as far as taking a step back, it's going to be Keith. We're going to see him produce a little bit less. We're going to see him out there make a couple more mistakes. We're going to see him slow down even more. And I think it's just time, and it's natural and it's fitting that the team and the management realize that. And Carlton has a chance here to make some changes and see what he can do with these pairings, because he needs to let these youth come in and take over, and that's going to be a big decision. So not giving Keith that much reign to have that much responsibility is going to be key, because he's not going to be able to do as much or keep up with the amount of minutes that he usually logs.
Duncan Keith. Okay. All right. Well, I guess I get the last word here. I think my pick for the person that's going to take the maybe take a step back is Dylan Strome. Now, he's not even officially re-signed yet, but he's supposed to be. And as I was doing my lineup projections, it was really tough to figure out where Strome was going to fit in. Because, he plays best at center. He plays best with DeBrincat. Then you've got Taves as your first line center. You've got they're going to have Doc at second, Kirby Doc at second, and so that puts Strome down in the third line. But then you have David Camp, who is going to be the fourth line. We talked about that I'm really excited about Walmart, that maybe could come in and be your third line center. And again, you also want to have DeBrincat up on those top two lines. So where does Strome fit in? And I'm not sure if he is really valuable or can really make anything happen unless he's got his buddy DeBrincat with him, and you have to stand out on your own. And I think I could almost see him being like, guys remember when it was Kane and Panarin and Anisimov in the center there, and that was golden. He was the greatest thing ever. But then all of a sudden Panarin was gone, and Anisimov kind of fell out of favor and didn't really have a place. And again, I'm not sure. I think that Dylan Strome could definitely find himself odd man looking in. So we'll see. But you know what, you guys, we're coming on here on 8 o'clock. And this was really, really, really fun. And we're going to do this all again next week, right?
You got
Yes,
it.
All right, for sure.
hopefully with a little more enthusiasm. We're gonna try to be like you, Gail.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's good. I just want to thank everybody for joining us here tonight for Blackhawks Banter. It was our debut show, and we're here with the hockey writers, and we're really fortunate that we're able to come do this with you guys. And I hope that you had a good time. I'm Gail Kauchak. We've got Greg Boysen with us, Brooke LoFurno, and Shaun. Oh, how do you say it, Shaun?
Filippelli.
All righty. Woo! So I want to thank you guys, and please join us next week, Monday nights. We're wanting to do this once a week, and it's at 7 o'clock Central Time, 8 o'clock Eastern Time, and we would love to have you, and thank you for having us tonight.
Good night, folks.